Ladies and gentlemen, if I could please have your attention, we're going to be starting our event with the presentation of colors. So I'd like to invite everyone to please stand at this time and have your attention towards the stage.
Goes. Goes. Right, goes turn. Punch.
Please remain standing. Please welcome Miss Rivers Ducharme to present the Alaska Flag Song.
Eight stars of gold on a field of blue, Alaska's flag, may it mean to you the blue of the sea, the evening sky, the mountain lakes, and the flowers nearby. The gold of the early sourdough's dreams, the precious gold of the hills and streams, the brilliant stars in the northern sky, the bear, the dipper, and shining bright, the great North Star with its steady light o'er land and sea, a beacon bright, Alaska's flag to Alaskans dear, the simple flag of a last frontier.
Okay. Thank you, and please be seated. We now please welcome to the stage, Meade Treadwell and Craig Richards.
Craig, did you pick that walk-in on music?
I did not. I think I left that to you.
International man of mystery here. Hey, thank you all for joining us this evening for the Hickel and Egan Awards for Excellence in Public Policy Leadership. My name is Meade Treadwell. I'm an emeritus president of the Commonwealth North Board of Directors.
And I'm Craig Richards, a current member of the Commonwealth North Board. We're here on behalf of our board president, Rebecca Winton Pearson, and vice president, as well as Award Committee Chair Chris Noss. We thank them for the opportunity to represent them in Commonwealth North at these proceedings. Mead and I will be your MC for tonight's events.
Well, that's pretty cool. You know, it is very cool that we get to give the Egan Award to Bill Walker. I always know that Bill Egan was from Valdez, and so is Bill Walker. In fact, Bill and Donna, I think it was 1982 that I met you, and you drove me all over Valdez, and we talked about how to build better relations with Asia, and we've been friends ever since. And that's really neat. And then we're also going to give the Hickel Award to Dan Sullivan. And Dan, I think it was, 1997 that Bud Fate, your father-in-law, called me and said, you got to meet my son-in-law. He's just out of the Marines. He's moved to Alaska. He's really doing some cool stuff. And indeed, you have. AG, DNR, National Security Council, Assistant Secretary of State. But I like more the outhouse story at fish camp. You can tell that.
Well, I was excited to present tonight because, like a lot of things with Alaska, one of the strange moments in Alaska that's all too common is that when we get together, we put political opposition aside, campaigns, disagreements, and we celebrate what's right for Alaska and what's good for Alaska.
Yeah. And this is a small town, small state. Everybody here has sued everybody else at least once, I think. I remember a breakfast with Bill Walker, and I went back and found out that he had sued us one morning. It was kind of fun, Bill. And you were my lawyer once.
Yep,
on a different issue, Craig, and then you were everybody's lawyer as Attorney General. So no lawsuits tonight, okay?
Right, and I once represented Bill suing to cancel the Point Thompson settlement agreement that Senator Sullivan negotiated.
Well, I've got a pretty good record before the Supreme Court, and I think Dan does too. But anyway. Oh, before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's thank the University of Alaska Anchorage Air Force Junior ROTC Color Guard. And let's also thank Rivers du Charme for that beautiful rendition of the Alaska flag song. So you're right, Craig, we're here on a Tuesday evening in the midst of an election season in 2024. And in 2 short weeks, we'll see an inevitable change in our president. The outcome of our race for our state's sole seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, a reshaping of our state legislature, and voters will also have their say on important ballot measures that can reshape our electoral processes and more. So just everybody calm down. It's just, there's no fundraising tonight, but we do have our other senator here tonight. Senator, I've seen you win 2 awards in the last week. Congratulations. One spectacular award at the Arctic Circle in Iceland, where she was recognized as really the leader in the United States on Arctic issues, and it's tremendous to have you here tonight. And because you have a flight to catch very shortly, we were trying to come up with funny telegrams for Senator Sullivan, but I'm just going to leave that part of the program to you. And let's invite our senior senator, Senator Lisa Murkowski, to the program.
I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go.
No, you should sit.
I did.
He did, he says. Well, this really is a family affair. I love the intro. Just a reminder to us about how small town our state is. We all are either somehow or other directly or indirectly related to one another, or as you have pointed out, we have all sued one another at some point in time during our professional careers, been on one side or another of some kind of contentious issues. But I think what sets us apart is that we can come together, we can sit at the same table, we can work through that problem and move on to another problem where we're all probably going to be switching sides all over again. Maybe it just happens because we are small in population. But I think at the heart of it, it comes back to we care about our place with a passion. And that passion drives us to work for the greater good, and sometimes the things that I think might be greater than your good are fair enough. Let's argue, let's talk about them. And so I want to thank Commonwealth North for this annual recognition where we hear about the efforts that individuals have made throughout their professional career and really through their life story in giving back to our state. And it was manifested with two governors, Governor Hickel and Governor Egan, two individuals strong in so many, many, many different ways, but again, who fought passionately for their state. So to be here tonight and to be able to give recognition to two men who I call friends is really very, very special to me. I have a confession, Meade. I'm not catching a flight. I have been flying so long and so many miles, I haven't seen my family, and they're having a family dinner tonight, and I said, I'm going to be there, just keep things cold, drink another glass of wine, but I'm going to be there after I congratulate my friends. So this is a family gathering here tonight, but I'm going to exit stage left here in just a moment and spend a little bit of time with my family. But I want to take this time because it's important to be there for those who have been there for us. I'm privileged to be able, thanks, I'm privileged tonight to be able to speak about two gentlemen that have been there for us. I start first with my colleague, Dan Sullivan. Dan I knew before he came to the United States Senate. As Meade said, I don't think I got the call from Bud, but I got the introduction. It was when you were back in Washington, D.C. and working under the Bush administration, Dan. And I was introduced to you as this great up-and-comer. He's been serving all over. He's not only got an extraordinary background with the Marines, but he's applying it in the Bush administration, and even better, he's married to Julie Fate Sullivan. Yay! That was all we really needed to know. We didn't need to know about Dan's background. We knew that he had married smart. He had married very, very well, and so immediately he gets extra bonus points. But that was the first time that I got to know Dan Sullivan. And of course, his rise in the Senate. One of the things that you need to know is Dan is a man who gets in, you're not going to be surprised, not afraid to rattle some cages, if you will, not afraid to take somebody, not necessarily by the throat, but to say, I'm going to hold your until we get some answers here. And that kind of an approach is absolutely unprecedented in Alaska. We've never had people like Ted Stevens or Frank Murkowski or Don Young who said, by God! Anyway, Dan is working to make that happen. Dan does have one annoying trait, though. And this could be part of the telegrams that come in. He has this really annoying habit of talking to somebody, introducing himself, and they'll say, well, I'm from Ohio. And he said, oh, Ohio, do you know that Alaska is 7.5 times bigger than Ohio? And then he'll move on to the next person from Nebraska. Oh, it's wonderful to meet you. I've been to Nebraska. Do you know that Alaska is 5.5 times bigger than Nebraska? Honest to gosh, he has all of these memorized. Drives everybody crazy, but it's good for them. But Dan is making his mark in significant ways in the United States Senate on behalf of Alaskans. A man who is really passionate, a man who is hard-charging, a man who, I'll tell you, I go to a lot of significant ceremonies and occasions in Washington, D.C., but one that really struck me as extraordinary was when Dan, after some 30 years in the Marines and as a reservist, accepted his retirement. What do they call it? It's not a change of command. What do? You retire. Yeah, you retire. But it was quite extraordinary, and I was able to go into the officers' lounge at the Marine barracks afterwards and learn what Marines do after they retire somebody. It involves a lot of usually brown or white liquids straight in a glass, or if you want to water it down with ice, you can. But it was quite extraordinary to see the respect that Dan had received from colleagues over the years, both in the military and out. So it is only appropriate, Dan, that you are being recognized with the Hickel Award. I see Amanda over there. We certainly expect that you're going to be working on this for Dan's next Alaskan of the Week speech. So if you need some talking points, we're here to help you there. I want to also acknowledge my friend Bill Walker, and Donna and his family. One of the things that I love about Bill and Donna is that you surround yourself with your family as often as you can. And it makes me feel good, and it makes me feel comfortable because it makes me feel like my family. And how you do it and the love that you have shared for one another continues and extends across your state. Bill and I, when he was governor and I was in the Senate, this was kind of a tough time. Tough times in Alaska, but it was tough in the Senate as well. We were going through the health care debate, and I was up against all kinds of opposition. You know, you got to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, you got to get rid of this, you got to get rid of that. And I'm like, give me something that's going to work for the state of Alaska, and I'll talk. And I would get proposals, and I would go back to Bill and his team, and I'm like, is this going to work? No, it doesn't work. The intricacy and the detail that this governor went to make sure that Alaskans were going to be cared for when it came to health care, health coverage, was extraordinary. And I don't forget when you embrace yourself in something like that. Most Alaskans think about just the gas line, the gas line, the gas line. But I got to see a governor that was so committed to making sure that Alaskans were going to be cared of. I don't forget that. Bill Walker governed at a time when it was tough in Alaska. It was really tough. I don't know who had the worst, who drew the worst straw, whether it was you or whether it was my dad. But both of you got just dealt awful times for our state when oil was in the toilet and we just had so many issues in front of us, and you had to make tough decisions. And sometimes those decisions were not popular. But I never, ever, for a moment, doubted that the decision that you were making was in the best interest of the state of Alaska. It was not in the best interest of you, it was in the state of Alaska. So thank you for that. So, Bill, and to your family, thank you for your service and how you have served. And I know that your heart still continues with that level of public service. So I am, as I say, I'm going to exit stage left here. But I'm going to share this all with you here tonight. This is Dan's night. This is Bill's night. You're gonna recognize them, and you will do so appropriately, and I appreciate that. But I'm gonna lock the door behind me here, and I'm gonna tell everybody, no one leaves until these guys have a deal on a gas line. Fair? Congratulations to you both. Thank you for being here.
Well, that was great, Senator. Have a good flight. You know, Craig, we have an audience of very accomplished folks with us this evening. In addition to our honorees and Senator Murkowski, we have Representative Julie Colomb. Julie, thank you for being here. We have candidate and safe to say Representative-elect Carolyn Hall. Carolyn. We have current candidate and former Representative Chuck Kopp. Chuck. We have former Representative Sarah Rasmussen. And we have former Representative Jennifer Johnston and Commonwealth North board member. Commonwealth North boards are a lot of fun because Jennifer's on the board and we have some great debates. But we also have others here who are running for office. So if you're either serving in office or running for election, raise your hand. Wow. How unusual. Doyle Holmes from Willow. Doyle, thank you, and your wife Debbie for joining us tonight. Thank you. If you've previously served in elective office, raise your hand. All right. Thank you for your service. And if you aspire to serve in elective office, that could be all of you, and it should be all of you. I recommend being lieutenant governor. It's actually a really fun job. But the main thing that I tell anybody who's aspiring to office is join Commonwealth North. Do what Bill Egan and Wally Hickel said we should do, which is sit down and go over our problems together and try to figure out solutions. And it was a bipartisan group. They joked when this started, Craig. You know, it was both Bill Egan and Wally Hickel had lost to Jay Hammond, so they put together a board that they called a cabinet in exile. But they ended up writing reports and helping the governor govern. And that's the spirit of this organization, is working together. So we're very proud to have everybody here tonight. Give yourselves a hand. And finally, let's take a moment to acknowledge tonight's event originates from the traditional homeland of the Eklutna Dena'ina here in downtown Anchorage at this namesake facility for Alaska's 11 Dena'ina cultures. And we also acknowledge Alaska as the homeland to 228 federally recognized tribes. So thank you.
Commonwealth North would also like to acknowledge the sponsors for tonight's event. These events are expensive and also provide a great mechanism for Commonwealth North to get its name out there and recognize our fellow Alaskans. Without these sponsors' support, the event would not have been possible. Our leader sponsors tonight are ConocoPhillips Alaska, GCI, Hillcorp Alaska, the Linden family of companies, Providence Health and Services Alaska, and Tote Marine. And then we have our advocate level sponsors with Alaska Communications, Logistics LLC, and Santos. Please join me in acknowledging our sponsors. Meade, why don't you introduce Commonwealth North again?
Well, I did, and I'm going to make just one other suggestion that it is a good thing to join. But when you take a look at the two co-founders of Commonwealth North, Bill Egan, as you know, was our state's first governor. He was also part of the Tennessee Plan, where we sent people to Washington to kind of show that we would know how to have good representatives, and we celebrate good representatives tonight. He was chair of the Constitutional Convention. He was born here. Governor Hickel chose to live here. Bill Egan hewed closely to his chosen political party. Wally Hickel took an unconventional path back to the governorship in 1990. Bill Egan has been described as a hail fellow well met. I had met him once in 1974, and I was walking down 3rd Avenue, and he was across the street walking by the Hilton, and he hollered across the street at me 4 years later, "Hi, Meade, how are you doing?" And how the heck he could remember my name from one meeting, I don't know. I hadn't caused as much trouble yet. But Bill was amazing, and I really have to say that Neva, after we lost a child, came and comforted us, and they had lost a child too. And it's an amazing personal relationship that he developed with so many Alaskans. Regardless of their similarities or their differences, Bill Egan and Wally Hickel were pragmatists, and we mentioned gas pipelines. They were also partners in one other attempt to an all-Alaska gas pipeline. But it was their practicality that led them, as founding directors, to seek a common agenda to realize Alaska's greatest opportunities. And part of that was picking the name Commonwealth North to begin with. The idea that Alaska is a Commonwealth. The Commonwealth Club in California was somewhat of an inspiration. They published a number of initial studies. One of them was rolled out at the National Press Club. Averill Harriman, who'd been on the Harriman expedition in 1899, came to the meeting. Jimmy Carter came through here, and they handed him a set of big 5 aces on our resources and saying, we're in an energy crisis, why not Alaska? It was a study on the Alaska Railroad, which helped us bring the Alaska Railroad home to ownership. Several studies on North Slope natural gas, and Craig, for something that I know you've been involved in a lot, studies on the Permanent Fund. So for the past 45 years, Commonwealth North has served as Alaska's premier, nonpartisan public policy forum focused on studying and informing Alaskans on most critical issues. And over the years, we've had citizen engagement and created opportunities for Alaskans to be part of these study groups, and Alaskans very much are. So I think what we're doing tonight is we're fulfilling that legacy. Alaskans will make their opinions known at the polls and the legislature through other forms of citizen involvement, and that's what Wally and Bill and Commonwealth North's other founders hoped for. And as always, we invite you and our fellow Alaskans to join us in this quest for a more informed citizenry and for effective solutions to our most critical issues.
Before we move on in tonight's program to recognize the honorees of the awards, Commonwealth North has made it a tradition to recognize Alaskan leaders who we've lost since the last award gala. Let's take a few minutes now as we eat our dinner to remember our friends and leaders, and I believe that there's a video that is prepared to do that.
Another turning point, a fork stuck in the road. Time grabs you by the wrist, directs you where to go. So make the best of this test and don't ask why. It's not a question but a lesson learned in time. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. So take the photographs and still frames in your mind, hanging on a shelf in good health and good time. Tattoos of memories and dead skin on trial. For what it's worth, it was worth all the while.
but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end it's right. I hope you had the time of your life. It's something unpredictable, but in the end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.
It's our intention to recognize those who have served in elective office and other aspects of public service. Undoubtedly, we may have missed someone worthy of our recognition, so to all who serve, thank you. And now the introduction of the awardees for the Hickel and Egan Awards.
Great. Well, Craig, I just want to say before we do that, Cindy Roberts is here, the widow of Malcolm Roberts, who was the first executive director. And that was really a partnership. Cindy and Malcolm came to make this organization get started every day. And Cindy, thank you, and we miss Malcolm tremendously.
Very much.
Commonwealth North established the Hickel and Egan Awards to honor those who helped shape and apply public policy in Alaska and the nation through their leadership and dedication to public service. And over the past 25 years, our aim has been not only to recognize our honorees, but to hold up their example to other Alaskans that they too might step into the arena of public service. And you can see names that are very recognizable on the slides there. Governor Hickel, Ted Stevens, Jay Hammond, Don Young, John Katz, Willie Hensley, Lisa Murkowski, Tony Knowles, Frank Murkowski, Jim Jansen, Tom Barrett, who is here tonight, Jacob Adams, Oliver Levitt, Julie Kitka, and Eric Wolforth. And it's really a stunning group that our honorees are going to join. On the back of your program is a poem called, that was read on the second day of the Constitutional Convention. It was a popular poem then. It said, "Bring me men to match my mountains." And while the language may reflect days gone by, it should today say, "Bring me men and women to match our mountains." We hope the sentiment of aspiring to match the greatness of place with great aspirations is something that transcends time and gender references. And we can all aspire to great deeds, and we think that's precisely what tonight's honorees have done and continue to do. And by the way, there's a souvenir glass which has our biggest mountain, Denali, on it for you to take home tonight. But Craig, take it away with the Bill Egan Award.
The William A. Egan Distinguished Alaskan Award recognizes Alaskans who inspire us to commit to public service and the future of the great state of Alaska. The Egan Award is this year's Egan awardee is Alaska's 11th governor, William Walker. Bill Walker served as Alaska's 11th governor from 2014 to 2018, following a lengthy legal career. He previously served as mayor and council member for the city of Valdez. During his tenure as governor, he faced the challenges of a faltering economy and declining oil revenues. Despite the challenges, he pursued initiatives to expand Medicaid, improve the state's relationship with Alaska's tribes, and sought sustainable fiscal reforms for the state's fisc. In the fullness of time, it has become more evident that Governor Walker demonstrated political courage in the face of some of our most challenging public policy dilemmas since statehood. We've invited two people to reflect on their observations and experiences with Governor Walker. Let me introduce our speakers as they come up to the stage to join me. Randall Hoffbeck served as the commissioner. I've made that mistake for 20 years, so not the first time. Randall Hoffbeck served as the commissioner of the Alaska Department of Revenue, where he focused on fiscal policy, state budgeting, and resource management. With a strong background in investment management and a commitment to promoting Alaska's economic stability, he also worked for more than 20 years in local government focusing on tax administration and property valuation. Mr. Barrett, if you could come up as well. Tom Barrett is an emeritus president and current board member of the Commonwealth North. He received the Hickel Award in 2019. His career includes serving as the CEO of Alaska Pipeline Services Company, a storied 35-year career in the U.S. Coast Guard, retiring as Vice Commandant, and he served, something I did not know until today, as the Deputy Secretary of the U.S. Department of Transportation. Let us welcome them to stage. We'll hear first from Randy, followed by Tom.
It's truly a privilege to be asked to speak here tonight as we honor Bill Walker with the William A. Egan Distinguished Alaskan Award for Public Service. Over the years, I had the honor to serve with Bill in various settings as we represented our respective employers and clients at both the local and state level. I had the privilege to serve in his cabinet while he was governor. And keeping with the theme of tonight, at times I actually had the opportunity to litigate against him when he obviously took the wrong position on an issue. And through it all, I was blessed to call him my friend. But one thing that has puzzled me for the better part of the last 10 years is how did you ever get elected governor? I mean, when you asked me to be your Commissioner of Revenue if you won the election, of course I said yes. I never thought you'd win. I mean, let's face it, you're kind of an unusual politician. I mean, what kind of politician tells people the truth even when they know the people won't like what they hear? What kind of politician thinks they need to keep the promises they make? Or doesn't vilify others just to make himself look better? What kind of politician runs as an independent when it would be so much easier to have been affiliated with a party? Or prioritizes what would be good for the state 25 years from now instead of what would look good in the next election cycle? No lying to get votes, no pretending to be something you're not. How did you ever expect to get elected that way? But yet you did. You, a self-described carpenter with a law degree, and by my observation, and I'm sure that Donna will agree with, a man with a very serious LNG addiction, became our governor. And one of the first things you did as governor was call your staff together for a long weekend retreat to come up with a set of priorities and values for your administration. And then you gave us a laminated card with those values on and priorities on there so that we wouldn't forget what we were supposed to do. And I want to read two of those core values from that card so that you can see who Bill Walker was as governor. Under public trust, that card said this: we're to earn and maintain the trust of Alaskans through transparency, integrity, rule of law, science-based decision-making, and competence. And under respect, we're to engage the voices of every Alaskan, recognizing that optimum solutions come through valuing opposing viewpoints. In a world where politics is dominated by spinning half-truths, vilifying those who wear the other team's jersey, and where the only goal seems to be winning and governance is a distant afterthought, it's hard to believe that anyone could actually run a government grounded in truth, integrity, and respect. But that's what you demanded of us, and that's what you modeled for us. And I want to share just a couple of inside baseball stories. When the legislature made it clear that they would not consider Medicaid expansion, you looked at who would benefit from the expansion and determined that it would help the most vulnerable people in the state of Alaska. You looked at how it would impact the economy of the state and determined that the inflow of federal dollars would be a boost to the state in a time when we were hemorrhaging dollars. And you looked at the risk of accepting federal dollars and the potential loss of state independence of Medicaid services and decided the reward far outweighed the risk. And in spite of everyone telling you not to do it, you just up and did it anyway, because it was the right thing to do. When industry continued to slow roll the plan of building a gas pipeline from the North Slope to Tidewater because it didn't meet their current economic threshold, you disregarded their advice and told them if they weren't going to build it, you would. And you canvassed the world seeking and negotiating purchase commitments, worked to resurrect federal loan guarantees, and built a corporation to advance the project because it was the rational thing to do to assure long-term economic stability for the state. But I do have a bone to pick with you on this one. If you recall, we went to Kodiak on a day trip. We flew the King Air over there. We were going to do 4 meetings on economic status of the state. Halfway through those meetings, you got a call that you had an appointment, you had confirmation that you could meet with somebody at KOGAS or the South Korean president or somebody, and you and a couple of your staff members jumped on the airplane and flew back to Anchorage. And I stood there with the keys to the rental car in my pocket thinking, that was my ride home. Facing a $4 billion budget shortfall and populist demands to just slash the budget, you, instead of posturing and pointing fingers, as many were doing at that time, held a summit in Fairbanks, brought all parties together to look at where there would be consensus on what we could cut out of the budget. And what we found was that although everybody wanted to cut the budget, no one really wanted to cut the programs that were associated with the budget. So you and your staff traveled the state, did 500 meetings across the state, listened to what people had to say, and developed a fiscal plan that would provide a stable and balanced budget for generations to come. A plan that included using some of the permanent fund earnings, implementing a broad-based statewide tax, and making planned incremental budget cuts to programs. And any one of those 3 was political suicide. And yet you proposed all 3 in order to balance the impacts across demographics and across the state, because it was the fair thing to do. And one last thing, since I said I could only go for 5 minutes, and I'm going to push 10 anyway. I said, I remember sitting with you and several other members of your cabinet in 2016, poring over a budget which was passed by the legislature with no significant movement in balancing the budget. We were discussing areas that needed to be redlined to bring the budget under control. And when we came to the line item for the PFD, you paused and asked us each to consider and comment on the impact that cutting the budget would have on cutting the PFD would have on the people of Alaska. And when someone inevitably brought up the political ramifications of cutting the dividend, you made it very clear that didn't matter. This wasn't about votes. You made it clear It was about the stability of the Alaskan economy and protecting the future of the permanent fund so that our kids and our grandkids would have the same opportunities that we had. And after some debate on a sustainable level for the PFD, you redlined the appropriation of $2,052 for every individual in the state and wrote in $1,022. It was a decision that most of us in the room knew would probably end your political career. But it had to be done. And you were willing to do it because nobody else wanted to, and nobody else would. For the 4 years that you served as governor, you proved to everyone around you that beyond a shadow of a doubt, you were not much of a politician. Not really a politician at all. And the result was that we, the people of Alaska, got to see firsthand what it looks like when politics are set aside and a true leader, a true statesman is in charge. And I can't think of anyone more deserving than you, Bill, to receive this award.
Randy, that was terrific. Captured an enormous amount of accomplishment. I had a little different approach with Bill, especially since when Etta said you only got 3 minutes. I thought, but anyway, I have known Bill a while. I'll talk about that in a minute. But I called a friend who I knew him well, and many of you in here know Margie Johnson, and she regrets she's not able to be here tonight. But I said, Margie, how do you capture Bill Walker? What do you think? She said, oh, he's a GOA. I said, GOA? She says, yeah, Grand Old Alaskan. So that was the tag I started with. And Margie and I talked for a little while about my experiences and hers. But what did that really mean to be a GOA, right? Take out the old word. I'm sure you don't care for that, but but anyway, it's somebody who fundamentally is successful, right? But is community-minded at heart, okay? Always focused on the community. And if you look at the career, and Randy talked about some of the stuff, Bill's only the second governor born in Alaska, grew up in Valdez, and lived through the '64 earthquake in Valdez, which basically destroyed his family, home, and business, and had to have the tenacity, his family did, to build up from there. That toughness, that Alaskan toughness, that resilience, saying we're going to knock down hard. And that, I think it was 38 deaths in that community, really hard. And he subsequently, eventually became a council member and the mayor of that community. But that resilience and that grit, if you will, Alaska grit, I think has characterized him in lots of ways, doing some of the things that Randy mentioned. The second thing that I knew about Bill was he was also family-minded, right, at heart. And, a lot of times Sheila and I, well, I know this, probably Senator Sullivan probably agrees with this. I related to Bill in part because I know I married up. It seems to me he did too. Dan, you probably did too. And, what matters is who we have the journey of life with, right? But Donna's been amazing. But a lot of times we'd be out at some event, typically for some charity, and he would be there. And so would Donna. A lot of time Lindsay would be there. And it's that community focus again. You don't have the time, but they made the time. They don't have the energy because they work hard, but they made the time and the space to support whatever community they were in. And I think that's something else. It's uncommon. And, it's just, again, goes to that character. and not being afraid to do hard things. And Randy mentioned some of those things to the extent it cost a political career. But he was always, from my perspective, willing to work across the lines and doing research for a paper. And this goes back to Commonwealth and what this is all about. I did some research. I read Washington's farewell address to the people of America when he left the presidency. And he reminded the people of America that the liberties that they had achieved, that the country, the republic that they had started, was achieved by joint councils and joint effort. And he was a little skeptical sometimes of the extremes that political parties could get to. Joint effort, joint councils, George Washington. And I think, again, Bill Walker exemplified that, even at personal cost, to do the things with others or without them that moved Alaska forward. So the last, and it's also a heart for Alaska, this great land of opportunity and challenge that we have, and a heart for Alaskans, the people. And I think that's a characteristic. The first time I ever had a conversation, a serious conversation with Governor Walker, he was governor then, and I'm just so impressed. I'm looking at the two awardees tonight. They're the same space. It was an hour-long conversation with one or two other people on a cold November night out in front of a fire in the courtyard of Covenant House. And most of the other folks there had gone to bed. And we had visited with the young men and women that were getting supported there, gone around the town to look at the many, many places that these young people were hanging out, if you will, and then the effort it took. And the backgrounds they had were just astonishing. But when most of the folks there went to bed being the tent out in the courtyard, okay, so I don't want to overdo it. But Bill sat out there for an hour, this is around midnight, and talked about his goals for the state, asked about how could we better the situation for the young men and women that were living in our city and had really very little hope. And he was honest, he was sincere, and he was reaching for solutions with some of the people there. And I thought, how remarkable that you've got a governor sitting out here, and it was a cold night. It was, 14, 15 degrees with a wind. Just trying to understand the people that lived here on the bottom of our society and needed help, and how he possibly could find a path to help deliver that help. And I thought that was remarkable. So that was my opening engagement with him. The other thing that, well, he was a pipeliner, right? So we related because of the tap stuff. And by the way, Donna worked on the pipeline too, right? You were up there too. So that was, I think that's how you met, right? A couple of pipeliners, so we related on that. But pipeline, that act, my gosh, you go back, the TAPS Pipeline, Trans-Alaska Pipeline Act, passed the U.S. Senate by one vote, a tie-breaking vote by the Vice President then, Spiro Agnew. And that allowed it to go forward. Incredibly contentious, but Alaskans, they got it done, and the delegation at the time helped get that done. But one of the things the pipeline does is it crosses a lot of Alaska native lands, traditional lands of Alaska. And there was a settlement, right? They settled to get the right of way to build it. But they're people. They're their lands. They live there. They hunt there. They fish there. Their families are there. And some of them are in tough spaces. It's not all easy. So it helps build a connection, though, if you have some respect for those people. So Governor Walker, at the time, when he had to withdraw from running for election, was at AFN, and he made that announcement. And Sheila and I were over there, Donna too, but the outpouring of affection for that man, because of the respect and relationships he had built with Alaskan Native people over many years, and I think he signed the proclamation establishing Alaska Indigenous Peoples Day, right? But the outpouring of affection went on for 30 or 40 minutes in that room of several thousand people. And what struck me more than anything was how genuine it was. And that type of relationship, it's not a handshake relationship. It's because there's a shared commitment, again, on the values side, to make Alaska work in a better way for everybody who's here. And that's a hard act, and it takes time and it takes energy. And Bill Walker did that. And it was just one of the most stunning outpourings of affection I have seen for any politician, and I have seen a lot of that. So that's kind of the heart of, I think, Bill Walker, that commitment to community, commitment to family, commitment to Alaskans, and commitment to the great opportunities that this state offers. Maybe even still a gas line, Bill. I know you've been working on that since, what, 2010 or somewhere like that, you know? We're still here, right? Heidi's laughing, you know, she's in the middle of that. But Commonwealth, again, what I think is the hallmark and why he is a GOA. After he lost an election there because of the dividend flap, he wasn't going back. But one of his opponents in the later election, Les Gara, many of you know him, I saw a quote from Les on it, and he said, what you basically had, you can't deny that he was fundamentally an honest person trying to do what he felt was right for Alaska. You know, so right for his family, right for his communities, right for his state, and rights for Alaska. That is what Bill Walker is. That's the GOA, Grand Ole Alaskan. We are honored to be with you tonight.
Bill, could you come on up, please?
I am Alaska. I am the one who's come with a harpoon and a drum. Over frozen trails I traveled to a land of midnight sun. I'm a howling husky team. I'm every miner's dream, laying golden in the stream. I am Alaska. I stand strong with open arms. In my greatness I do care. In my youth I am the future of all who come to dare. And my heart is bold Denali, forever wild.
Wow. I was expecting more of a roast than than I received. This is, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Hoffbeck, my good friend. Admiral Barrett, thank you so much for your kind words as well. And I'm just humbled by the things that were said, and it's beyond appreciation. So before I begin my comments, I want to acknowledge my friend Senator Dan Sullivan. The last time he and I shared a stage was in the Hoodoo Mountains. It's not in Afghanistan, it's a little north of Paxson. And we were there for Arctic Man. And you don't know what a large part you played in my being elected. Because I was in Fairbanks at AFN, and Howie Thies came up and said, "You want to ski, Arctic Man?" And I like to ski. I grew up in Valdez, ton of snow. That's all you had to do. I said, "I don't know, Howie. That's pretty dangerous, but not." He said, "Well, Dan Sullivan's going to be there." I said, "Okay, all right, I'll do it." He said, "I can get you in front of 7,000 people." I said, "I'm in." So we did that at what was that night called? It was. Anyway, the night before, Calcutta night, is we each shared the stage about it, and it proved that Dan Sullivan is smarter than Bill Walker, because I actually did ski. And I got up there, and I asked Howie. I said, "Howie, is it groomed?" "Oh, yeah, it's groomed, no problem." Okay, we get up there. I don't know, anybody skied Arctic Man? Yeah, I didn't think so. You're all smarter than me. So So we get up to the top, and I'm the first one down. I'm the, quote, celebrity skier. There's actually a code for you. You're the fool. They're going to be the first one down. It's 72-degree slope. And at the bottom of this is a jump. And it's not groomed. I said, Howie. And then it goes from there, widens out into a trail, and it's about 4 miles, and it's easy breezy after that. Howie, what happened? Oh, you said there's a groom. He said, oh, you can't groom this shit. Oh, you didn't say that, you know? So anyway, so I went down. Again, there were 7,000 people there. I went down, had the GoPro thing and all that. We made a little ad out of it, and I won by 7,000 votes. So if they hadn't said that you were going to be there, I probably would have said, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. I'm a competitive guy, whatnot. So anyway, it's good to see you, and it was an honor to be at your swearing in, honor to meet your folks. That night was a very special night for us, so thank you for including us as part of that. You know, I certainly want to thank Commonwealth North for this incredible honor. I certainly knew Governor Egan and Governor Hickel well, and admired them both, huge mentors to me. So it means a lot to me that I would be recipient of this award. At first, I thought it was just we're down to the W's at this point, but I see not, because we have Senator Sullivan as well. So I want to thank sort of Juanetta, who is phenomenal in putting this together. I don't know where she is, but she is absolutely phenomenal in putting this together. Yeah, thank you. Absolutely phenomenal. I want to thank my First Lady of 47 years, Miss Donna. You loved being Alaska's First Lady, and they loved you back. You were wonderful. I also want to acknowledge my family that's here. Some are out of state, but Lindsay and Greg Hobson, Tessa and Dennis Linderman, Adam and Sabrina Walker, and our two of our very dear grandchildren. I know, I get a little emotional when I even look at Mara. She's about to turn 16. She shouldn't be turned 16 quite yet, but Mara and Porter Hobson as well. So thank you very much for being part of this. It means the world to me. So in Valdez in the 1960s, early 60s, it was 100% volunteer fire department. And that meant that a 12-year-old punk kid like myself could hang on to, show up at the fires and find your spot on the fire hose. I never worked my way up to the nozzle guy, but I was a fire hose holder, and I was pretty damn proud of that. One fire, when Aaron Hood's house was on fire in the early 60s, I was holding a hose behind somebody that had a suit on. It's like, who wears a suit to a fire? I mean, he had a suit on. And partway through the holding of the hose, he was just in front of me, he keeps holding on the left hand of the hose. He turns around to me, he said, hi, I'm Governor Bill Egan, what's your name? Wow, well, that's pretty impressive. And when I told him, and as everybody here that knew him, Meade said it well, he never forgot it. He had an ability to remember names, and it was very genuine. So that was my first meeting with Governor Bill Egan. He was, I'm not sure I should say this, but his brother Truck Egan had the liquor store. So I knew Bill Egan, but I spent a little more time with his brother Truck, I think, in the old town and whatnot. But, you know, Governor Egan and I had a fair amount in common. We're both Valdez High School graduates. You know, Valdez High School, a little bit of bragging about Valdez, has the highest percentage of graduates who became governor in the state. Valdez High School. There's that. Bill Egan was the first-born Alaska elected governor. I was the second Alaska-born governor of the state. We both played basketball for the Valdez Buccaneers, 3.5 decades apart, but still the same team. We both were the mayor of Valdez when we were in our mid-20s. And so now when he graduated, this is where our paths sort of depart. When he graduated from high school, he was the salutatorian. And it's interesting, he gave such a great speech that the valedictorian got up to speak, and his mother, the valedictorian, was George Ashby from Copper Center Lodge fame. He got up to speak, and his mother, as an English teacher, really had prepped him, and they had practiced and rehearsed his speech as the valedictorian speech is going to be the best ever. After Bill Egan gave the salutatorian speech, George Ashby got up there and he said, "Well, I think Bill pretty much said it all, and thanks very much for coming." His mother was livid that he would do that. And, you know, not trying to take anything away from Governor Bill, but there were only 2 people in that class that year in 1932. So, you know, so when I graduated from Valdez High School, I was neither the valedictorian or the salutatorian, but I was in the top 17 in our class because we had 19 in our class. So. You know, I want to certainly acknowledge my dear friend, my soulmate, Byron Malott, the late Byron Malott. We spent part of AFN with Tony, and certainly there to congratulate Ben on the incoming president of AFN and whatnot. But I just want to acknowledge Byron's role in our journey, I'll put it that way. If he had not done what he did joining our campaign, I wouldn't be probably standing here, obviously, today. So I wanted to acknowledge that. Did I not mention you, Jordan? Oh my goodness, Jordan, my dear son, Jordan Walker. I'm getting. I'm so sorry. I'm getting all sorts of hand signals from the family table, like, "Oh my gosh, what if you?" I'm so sorry, Jordan. I'm a little bit flustered tonight. I also want to acknowledge Lieutenant Governor Val Davidson, who stepped up at a very difficult time and did a phenomenal job. And I certainly want to acknowledge someone who worked very hard to become would have been today's Lieutenant Governor, Heidi Drygas. So thank you very much, Heidi, for all that you've done. So, you know, I've always said no one party has a monopoly on good ideas, and I truly believe that. That's why I enjoyed so much being the only independent governor in the nation when I served, because I could pick and choose from the best. And boy, when he came into office, it wasn't long before oil moved down and stayed at $26 a barrel. It was the first year after the passage of Senate Bill 21, and we had a $4 billion hole in our budget. A $4 billion hole. And let me put that in perspective. That's $500,000 an hour. That's $12 million a day. Every day I wondered how many more schools could we have built on that particular day, well, as a result of how big the hole was in our budget. To put it in perspective, I had a call with the governors, Western governors, every 2 weeks, just the governors, no staff. And one of the calls, Doug Ducey, a friend of mine in Arizona, Governor Ducey, he said, I need to leave this call early. I've got a hole in my budget. I said, well, Doug, how big's your hole? Oh, it's $20 million. I said, Doug, our hole's $4 billion. He said, wow, you're going to have to raise your taxes. We don't have any taxes. He said, you really made me feel a lot better about my $20 million hole in my budget. But while we were clearly dealt a dead hand financially, we had an incredible team. We really had an incredible team. We really did. I mean, I think, you know, Randy is almost a spokesperson for the team that we had. That we couldn't have done what we did without the team we had. We had a team of Alaskans, you know, and I insisted that do not leave your initials at the door. Bring them to the cabinet table, and let's have that discussion. Let's have a vigorous discussion on all sides of the issue. Then we'll decide what we're going to do. But don't hold back because you think what you think I might want to do or I would never make a decision first. I'd let it go around the table, and I want to hear. I want to have that discourse, and we did. Boy, we had some heated discussions around that cabinet room table. But, you know, that's what it was all about. And that's how we got through the Herculean effort. You know, yes, it was over 500 meetings we had across the state about the fiscal plan. we had the Alaska Dialogue in Fairbanks with hundreds of Alaskans from all across the state. We stayed in the dorms at UAF and talked for days about what are we going to do? We got to fix this thing. There was not a question about, do something or not do something. So we did. So, and I remember one day Randy came to me, Commissioner Hoffbeck. He said, "Governor, I got some bad news." I said, "What? Oil's at $10 today?" Nope, still at 26. But every sovereign that lived off of resources, except Norway, have all gone broke before they made the turn. So, Randy, that's not possible. We have $18 billion in the bank. That's just not in the realm of possibilities. Well, today that $18 billion is nearly gone. We're less than $1 billion left of that $18 billion. So we were focused on that. And if the structured draw, and Craig, you were very involved in that. You were, the legislature just wasn't ready for it. I mean, they just weren't. We got our one thing, and that took a lot of work on the structured draw. We knew that was the foundation. I'm a carpenter. I wanted to take that foundation and build some walls and a floor and a roof and finish it, and we just couldn't. They just weren't ready to do it, so we couldn't do that. But I'm very proud of what we did do, and we made some really tough decisions. But, as I said during my State of the State, I ran for this job to do the job, not keep the job. And the day that I am making decisions to keep the job, I'm working for a constituency of one rather than for everybody else, and I believe that. So the elephant in our state right now really is two things: energy and a fiscal plan. We need both. And I know everybody's afraid I'm going to pivot into a gas line talk. I'll do my best not to. Some say that I should be swimming, doing backstrokes in the sea of I told you so on the gas line. I don't do that. But, we were almost there. We were very close, very close. The momentum that we had was very significant. So, but I really wanted to thank my team. I mean, I'm here representing the team that we had. Senator Murkowski spoke about the healthcare issue, and that was right up front and center of what we were focused on was healthcare. And after the partisan gridlock, I received great legal counsel on what I could do and couldn't do, and so I signed it. And today, 70,000 Alaskans have health care as a result of doing that. The nice thing is it brought $1 billion a year into the state economy, and it reduced the state budget by hundreds of millions of dollars by having that coverage. So it was just the right thing to do. I don't know whether it was politically correct or not. I don't know. We really focused on what I would call the long overdue need for a respectful working relationship with Alaska Natives across our state, and we really engaged in that. I saw Grace Jang here earlier. Thank you, Grace, for your help with the GTAC, the Governor's Tribal Advisory Council. Putting that together was just. It was enjoyable to put that together, to give a seat at the table, our table. And thank you, commissioners, that would come to those meetings. And those were tough conversations because they've been waiting for 30, 50 years to have that discussion. And we stood there and welcomed it. We needed that. We needed this. We did the first compacting with the tribes, and Val Davidson was right in the middle of all that. My goodness, what an incredible job she did on that. After I signed the Medicaid expansion myself, other governors followed suit. It took someone to actually be the first one to do it, and other states followed as well. The same with Indigenous Peoples Day. Boy, I heard from a lot of people on that, not so happy with me, but that was not why I made the decision. It was the right thing to do. And other states, now I think there's only 14 states that don't have Indigenous Peoples Day. We were one of the first. We had every department had a tribal liaison. We had every commissioner, deputy commissioner, had to go through a Alaska Native Indigenous people cultural training, and Liz Medicine Crow was the instructor. And boy, you paid attention when Liz Medicine Crow spoke. It was absolutely phenomenal. But my favorite part was some of my visits to the villages. One in particular. I flew up to Kotzebue, met with Reggie Jewell, the mayor of the Northwest Arctic Borough. We flew up to Nuiqsut, and we toured Nuiqsut and went to the schools and whatnot. And as we left, the teacher from the 4th grade gave me a bundle of letters for me, and so I read them on the flight back to Kotzebue. We had to change planes in Kotzebue for a little bigger plane. And one of them said, "Mr. Walker, are you a mayor or just a governor?" So I hand that over to Reggie. Reggie and I used to play ball against each other. He was at Copper Valley School, was Copper Valley Bucks. I was the Valdez Buccaneers. So we knew each other pretty well. I said, "What are you teaching these kids in school?" And he said, "Well, yeah, that was probably one of my relatives, most likely, that did that." I want to thank our team for the Andy Mack, for the phenomenal work on the Willow Project. My goodness. Those were some of the toughest meetings I've ever been in. With Secretary Jewell. Oh my goodness. In fact, I wish that Senator Murkowski was here. One meeting I went over to her office, Secretary Jewell, we just didn't see eye to eye on anything. And Senator Murkowski gave me a jar of, she said, "What are you going to take her?" I said, "I'm not going to take her anything." "No, you got to take her a gift." So I took her a jar of Blake's smoked salmon from Cordova, cream de la cream of smoked salmon. And at the end of that meeting, it was so bad, Secretary Jewell said, "I bet you want that salmon back." I said, "Yeah, I do." And I took it back. I'm telling you, but we stayed, we got it done. We stayed and we anyway, I mean, there's a lot of folks who were involved in the success of Willow, and I'm proud that we had a role, and certainly Commissioner Mack was very, very, very involved in that. So, I want to thank the, not just the staff people, but I mean the campaign workers. I mean, we have somebody here tonight that built a scaffolding at the corner of New Seward and Benson, and climbed up there and stayed up there at night, waving signs, and wouldn't come down, I think, until the election. Something. Ben Campbell, unbelievable what you did. I mean, I'll never forget that. So I'd like to have anybody that was involved in a campaign, in a commissioner or a staff employment of the Walker-Malott administration, please stand. Almost done, Juanetta. I know you told me keep it under an hour. Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay, so I was, Randy Hoffbeck said it well. He was surprised I got elected. So was I. I mean, holy smokes, I'm no politician. But anyway, I'm a pretty good skier and a carpenter and all that. But so the first couple nights at the house in Juneau, I didn't sleep very well. I kept waiting for the Parnells would come in and turn on the light and say, "What are you guys doing here?" I mean, it just didn't feel right. I didn't feel comfortable. So I was leaving the house one day, and it was in the summer during one of our not so special sessions, and there was a lady out there with her daughter taking pictures of the totem pole just to the right of the house, of the door, and there's a minivan with the door open, some other people in there. So she's taking this picture, and so I said, "Well, hey, I'll take the picture of the two of you and that." So I'm taking the picture. She says, "Well, so what do you do here at the house?" And I said, "Well, I live here." And she said, I know that, but what do you do when you live here? I mean, I said, "Well, I'm the governor." And she said, "Oh my God, honey, get out of the van! The governor's taking our picture." When so they all came over for the picture, and we had some good laughs about a few of those situations. When I served. As the only independent governor in the nation, I had a good relationship with President Obama and with President Trump, because for a couple of reasons. One is they just didn't know what to do with me, because I wasn't one of them, but I wasn't one of them. So it just made it a little bit interesting for them, and it was one experience we had was the National Governors Association every year they have a dinner at the White House, and you go in and you get your little card as you go in as far as where you're going to sit. Well, we got in there, and we're just glad to be in the White House. We can sit anywhere. It wouldn't make a difference to us. And so they had them all situated where they're going to sit, and we kind of looked at our little card, and we had Republicans over here, and we had Democrats over here, and we sat with the president because they didn't know where to put us. And so we sat there, and and my friends, the Republican governor friends, glared at me, and the Democrat governors glared. Like, what's that guy from Alaska sitting with the president for, you know? So how nuts is that? So my goal was this. Look, I'm too old to start at the bottom and work my way up. So I figured I better stop at the top, work my way down. So my goal was to spend as much time with President Obama and President Trump as I possibly could. So when President Obama was coming to Alaska for his visit, for a couple days, I called to see how much time I would have with him. They said, well, you can ride in the Beast from J Bear to the Captain Cook. But that's about 4.5 minutes at 80 miles an hour when you close the streets and whatnot. Nope, that's not going to work. I said, well, tell you what, I'll fly up with him. There was a pause on the other end of the line. They said, well, we've never done that before. I said, well, neither have I. And so the next morning, Chief of Staff, Jim Whitaker busted through my office and said, you're on Air Force One. I said, okay, I guess I better get to D.C. Had to pull the boats out of the water before we do that because we have a place at Nancy Lake. So I got my priorities getting those boats pulled out. So I did that late at night, left the boats outside of Berkshire Marina and fly to Washington, D.C. I get on the plane, and I had time for one call. They bring me a landline, so I just a little bit mesmerized that I'm on Air Force One. I got to tell you, climbing up those steps onto Air Force One, it was a moment for me. I mean, come on, I'm just a, punk from Valdez and whatnot. I'm climbing up on Air Force One. So they bring me this phone. I call Tom Vitt out at Berkshire. I say, hey, Tom, my boats are out by the gate. He was locked. Could you just take him in? He said, what are you calling? What kind of a phone are you? Where are you? I said, well, I'm on Air Force One. And he says, oh, hang on a second. I got the Pope in here right now putting his boat away too, He didn't believe that. And a couple of days later when we landed, he realized that. And so, I felt kind of bad, though, when I got off of Air Force One. President Obama gave me a little, it's a beautiful wood box with put 2 decks of cards in there, and he had a little bag of memorabilia from Air Force One. I'm thinking, I've stolen more stuff than that. I had every pocket, and anything that said Air Force One, I was M&Ms. Oh, man, that was amazing. So the same situation with President Trump. He invited me to Washington because we issued a declaration of disaster on the opioid crisis, and he did as well. About a month later, he wanted me to be there for the signing of that. So okay, I did. But then he also invited us to a meeting in Hawaii with Pacific Rim governors. I said, well, I can't physically get from one to the other, and So they said, no, unless I go with you. I said, okay, back on Air Force One with I'm probably the only governor that ever flew on Air Force One with a Democrat and a Republican. Not at the same time, obviously, at the same time, whatnot. But when I did get on, I knew a friend in the White House that was in charge of local government stuff, and he called me the day before when I flew with President Obama. He said, just so you don't embarrass yourself, here's a few things. When you get on there, just sit down. Don't wander around. Don't explore. Don't be creative, whatnot. Okay. He said, your name tag will be there. It'll be the best seat you ever have been on. Okay. I sat down. And we take off, before we even level off, around the corner comes President Obama, just a sweater, and he's got his aide with him. He said, oh, Governor Walker, have you ever been on this bird before? I said, well, let me think. No, I don't think I've ever been on Air Force One before. And so he said, well, let me show you around. Stem to stern, up in the cockpit, in the belly. It was absolutely phenomenal. I don't mean to go on about Air Force One, but I'm just a small town guy. It was a pretty big deal for me and whatnot. So a highlight for me was the inaugural events. I didn't expect inaugural events. I figured it'd be sworn in, and that was it. And the whole inauguration in Juneau was unprecedented for me. It was very, very moving. So we had 8 in all. Whenever a community said we're going to have an inaugural event for you, we obviously were there. One of the most interesting ones was in Nome. It was in December, cold, blowing, and we got ready for the parade to start. The mayor came over and she said, well, Governor, you're going to notice in this parade there's not a single spectator in the watching. And she says that's because the entire town is in the parade, and they were. And they were. So we stopped at the arch and watched the whole group go by. But I want to talk a little bit just briefly about Governor Hickel and Governor Egan, what they did after they were out of office. And I hold them in such esteem because of the things I'm going to say. Just the fact this organization itself was created by Governor Egan and Governor Hickel. They were bitter competitors in politics. They absolutely were. There's no question about it. Until the election, until the last vote was counted, and then the next day they figure out what can they do for Alaska. Their creation of the Yukon Pacific Corporation. I mean, they got all the permits, they got environmental EIS, they got right-of-ways, they got export licenses, they got land, they got for a gas line back in the 80s, early 80s. And they got further than anybody ever has. Even when, where we are right now today, I give them the credit for having gotten the furthest because they just did it. They were doers. They didn't study a damn thing. They just did it. And so I just, Backbone. Malcolm Roberts was certainly very involved in Backbone as well. When BP was going to buy ARCO, they said absolutely not. No. We want more oil companies, not less. So Backbone stood up and like nobody else, the state didn't, and said, no, you cannot allow this to happen. We went to Washington, D.C. and met many folks in Washington, D.C. about this, and we stopped it. They had to divest ARCO, and that's why without that, we wouldn't have ConocoPhillips in Alaska today, but for Governor Hickel, Malcolm Roberts, and Backbone that stood up and said, no, it's not good for Alaska. So I'm very, very honored with them. When Governor Hickel passed, the sad day that he passed, he had an unusual request. He wanted to be facing Washington, D.C., standing up. He didn't like Washington, D.C. And that was not allowed. Apparently, according to the cemetery folks, you can't do it that way. They said you had to be in a sealed container if you did that. I was over at Steel Fab that day with Cindy Roberts, and they shut down the entire steel fab to build a metal tube for Governor Hickel so he could be standing up facing Washington. And at some point, the cemetery folks said, okay, you can do what you're going to do. You don't have to get the steel tube and all that. So we stopped that. And so they did. But I never knew what part of his body was facing Washington when he was standing up. So that's a little bit of speculation. So in... my last comment, one Saturday at the house, no staff was there and knock at the door. I opened the door, and a little, probably 8, 9-year-old boy standing there with a pizza box. I'm thinking, did we order pizza? And he said, Mr. Governor, I've got a couple of pieces of pizza left. Would you like some? Well, who's going to say no to that? So we sat on the steps. He'd been down to Bullwinkle's down the hill and was coming home with this pizza. So we sat down and finished off the pizza. But then afterwards I thought, I wonder when he got home when his mom said, where's my pizza? And he said, well, the governor ate it. Well, that could be an excuse. So it is truly been my honor to be here tonight to speak to you. And I appreciate so much all those I've seen. I know many are here as appropriately for Senator Sullivan, a very deserving honor as well for you. But it was the honor of my life to be the governor of this great state. It was not an easy shift. No shift is easy. No governor has gotten off with an easy shift, I don't think, in this great state. It's a tough one, but it was an honor because of the people that was on our team. Our team made it enjoyable. As tough as it was, made it very enjoyable. So I again thank Commonwealth North for this great honor, for the work that they do. Thank all of you that are here tonight to honor Senator Sullivan. And I just want to say, may God bless this great state of Alaska. Thank you.
I am Alaska. I am the one who's come with a harpoon and a drum. Over frozen trails I traveled to a land of midnight sun. I'm a howling husky.
Congratulations, Governor Walker, Donna, thank you. And for the team, I can just tell you that there's a guy standing up right over there who is very proud to have heard you talk and see that award. Now I'd like to introduce the Walter J. Hickel Award for Distinguished Public Policy Leadership. It was established in 1999 by Commonwealth North to recognize courageous leaders who played a significant role in advancing Alaska's public policy interests. Our 2024 Hickel Award honoree is U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan. Dan Sullivan has committed himself to public service for more than 30 years, and I was telling a few stories, but I just say before, while he was Attorney General, the two of us ended up in Kotzebue one night, and we took a long walk. We actually walked every street in Kotzebue, and then we walked it again. And he was focused on the idea of what became Choose Respect. What can we do to address domestic violence, sexual assault in Alaska? And it was that night, Dan, that I just kind of saw that you were a constructor, that you could figure out that you were a guy who worked on ways to solve problems and you didn't give up. And then we had a chance to serve together in an administration, and that was one of the highlights. And then you became a U.S. Senator, and you've been a staunch advocate for the military, veterans, infrastructure, Arctic policy, building our relationships with Asia, and that's something that we talked about for a long time and done a fantastic job. As Attorney General and Commissioner of the Department of Natural Resources, you held judicial clerkships on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit and the Alaska Supreme Court. You spent 30 years in the U.S. Marine Corps, convinced my son to join the Marine Corps, and the Marine Corps Reserve, and worked at the U.S. Department of State and the International Economics Directorate of the National Security Agency. And like the long runs he often takes through the Chugach foothills when he's here in Anchorage, he just keeps going, and his tireless focus on raising Alaska's opportunities and interests to be at the forefront of the national agenda has helped to more fully realize the Alaska agenda. So we've asked two people who know Senator Sullivan to share their reflections on the man and his service, and let me introduce them now as they come to the stage. John Katchen. John, you were also my lawyer, but I don't think we sued anybody. We probably should have. Is a partner at Holland & Hart, a law firm known for its work in energy, natural resources, and business law, and he's recognized for his expertise in Alaska's unique landscape and resource management. Before joining Holland & Hart, John served in strategic roles for the state of Alaska, including senior counsel to Alaska DNR Commissioner Dan Sullivan and special assistant to then Attorney General Dan Sullivan. Also, I'd like to invite to the stage Tara Sweeney. Tara is now Vice President of External Affairs at ConocoPhillips. She served as the Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs in the U.S. Department of Interior under the Trump administration, where she advocated for indigenous rights and economic development. Sweeney hails from Utqiagvik and has held various leadership roles with the Arctic Slope Regional Corporation. She's a past chair of the Arctic Economic Council. Commonwealth North recognized her with the Egan Award in 2020 for her work at the Department of Interior, particularly her advocacy for addressing the crisis of missing and murdered indigenous people. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll start with John.
Thank you, Meade. It's a great honor to be here to say a few words about my friend and mentor, Dan Sullivan. Back in 2009, I was an assistant attorney general in the Department of Law, and Dan was hired, I think, in May or June of that year, and wanted a special assistant. I was asked to interview with Dan. In preparing for the interview, I sent Dan's bio to my dad, and I said, "What do you think?" He responded, "He seems impressive, but be sure to ask why the AG hasn't become an astronaut yet." I think the interview went well, although truth be told, Dan did most of the talking. I was eventually hired, and over the next 3.5 years or so, I spent many long days and weekends working very closely with Dan, and I want to briefly discuss some of the things I witnessed. Dan is a tenacious advocate and devoted public servant. Just to give one example, somewhat, we were in negotiations with Exxon over the Point Thompson dispute, and we had to spend hours and hours working with Exxon and listening to Dan demand a meaningful Alaska hire provision. It was a hot, stuffy day in a conference room in Fairbanks, and Dan would not relent. There were two state people working that day in the conference room, and we were ready to leave, but Dan would not rest until he got what he wanted. And anyone that's, I know Governor Walker has dealt with an Exxon, they do not relent, but Dan got them to relent that day. We ultimately ended up with a great settlement that got the field into development and led to about $5 billion of investment in the state. Dan is also a man who's committed to the truth. When every speech we worked on, any testimony, any court filing, any AG opinion he issued, any DNR decision that we worked on, he would say, "Are you sure that's accurate?" I'd say, "Yes, sir." And he'd say, "Well, then double check and triple check." He's committed to honesty and integrity, and it's just incredibly important today with so many of our politicians who seem to lack that quality. Dan is a leader with judgment. He brings out the best in people, and he drives his staff. He drives them hard, but he gets results. And those results rebound to the state's interest. Dan also focuses on what matters. We live in an age where we spend so much time litigating what politicians say, and reporters want to get comments. What do you think about this or that? Dan's focused on what politicians do. Dan focuses on results that matter for the state and matter for us. So I just want to briefly spend, Dan, we could be here all night talking about all the things he's accomplished or all the things he's done for this state, but I do want to mention a few important things that Dan worked on when we were working together at the Department of Law and at DNR. Back about 12 years ago or 15 years ago, Cook Inlet was in a gas crisis, which we're reliving now. Dan spent countless hours working to drive investment with the private sector into Cook Inlet. He got that investment into Cook Inlet, and we, or at least for 10 years, were able to get out of that Cook Inlet crisis. And Hillcorp came in, and other companies came in, and they delivered. He also focused, one of his first days on the job at DNR, TAPS shut down. There was a leak, and they had to shut it down, and there was a real concern that TAPS was not going to be able to restart, and some government bureaucrats did not want it to restart, and he insisted that they did not have the legal authority to keep TAPS shut down, but he got it up and running. But the other thing that he learned through that process was TAPS had a throughput issue. There was so much focus on the gas line, which is very important, but our lifeblood is the oil and TAPS, and Dan came to the insight that we need more investment on the North Slope, and so that became the focal point of his tenure as DNR commissioner, was bringing in more investment, getting people to understand that the North Slope has so much oil potential, going to New York and talking to the capital markets, going to the CEO's offices in Houston and all around the world and talking about what a great place Alaska is to invest. And now we're on the cusp of two major projects, the Pica project and Willow project, that are the fruit, and again, as Governor Walker said, it's not just one administration or one person, but he played a pivotal role in bringing an investment into the state that have benefited all of us. I wasn't involved in this, but I know that he has played a critical role in shaping Arctic policy. The Obama administration he insisted on getting the Obama administration to focus on the Arctic, and I think they came forward with a presentation that was 14 pages of PowerPoint slides and pictures, and Dan said that's not good enough. This government, the federal government, the Department of Defense needs to focus on the Arctic, and he's worked in a bipartisan manner with the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and the Biden administration to get them to focus on the Arctic. He also played a critical role in saving the 425 Airborne Brigade in Anchorage and increasing resources for the Coast Guard. A lot of this stuff doesn't get written about. It seems like we're, again, more focused on what do you think about what this politician or that politician is saying, but Dan is relentlessly focusing on Alaska and bringing results for Alaska that benefit all of us. But perhaps, and Meade mentioned this earlier, the thing that I'm most proud of working with Dan on, and I think one of his greatest accomplishments, is the Choose Respect campaign. When Dan first became AG, he wanted to understand what were the biggest issues confronting the state, and we started talking about domestic violence and sexual assault. It's a huge epidemic, and Dan was horrified when he looked at the numbers and just said, we have to do something about this. So working with Governor Parnell, he put together a comprehensive initiative, the Choose Respect Initiative, to help address this epidemic, sorry. He delivered results, and so as a result of the Choose Respect campaign, Dan was able to get more district attorneys to prosecute abusers, more lawyers to help represent victims of domestic violence, more VPSOs in rural Alaska to make sure that there's some law enforcement, and more resources and services to help victims. This is a fight that he continues today in the U.S. Senate and has sponsored legislation, including, I believe, with Kamala Harris on domestic violence issues, and not only sponsoring, but getting legislation passed. So Dan is largely responsible for starting a conversation that we've needed to have for far too long about the abuse of women and victims of domestic violence and sexual assault in the state. And it's a conversation that continues to happen in large part because of this initiative that he played a critical role in spearheading. So for those of us who've worked closely with Dan, we know that he isn't interested in scoring cheap political points or winning the news cycle. He's relentlessly focused on getting stuff done for Alaska and Alaskans. Unfortunately, many in DC are trampling on the legacy of Ted Stevens to crush economic opportunities and take power away from the state and Alaskans. But fortunately for us, Dan is fighting tooth and nail to preserve opportunity for Alaskans and to ensure our federal government keeps its promises. Our senator, who has devoted so much time and energy to a state he loves, could not be more well-deserving of the Walter J. Hickel Award for Distinguished Public Policy. I just want to thank you, Dan, for all you've done for the state and for me, so thank you.
Well, good evening. Juanetta, go ahead and start the timer. I might be the only one who follows the rules tonight. Good evening. Governors Hickel and Egan were trailblazers of distinction, and it's fitting that we're celebrating the accomplishments of two very distinguished Alaskan leaders. So congratulations to Governor Walker and to Senator Sullivan. And thank you to Commonwealth North for this recognition. Now, Alaskans know Senator Sullivan for his distinguished service in the United States Marines and his tenacious and relentless representation of Alaska in the United States Senate. Dan is the ultimate statesman and diplomat, representing Alaska and the United States abroad on trade and national security missions, hosting international dignitaries, even royalty. That is the job for a United States Senator. What I've come to admire is Senator Sullivan's ability to perform those duties and still remain grounded in who he represents. In the mid-2000s, there was a small delegation from the North Slope scheduled to meet with Senator Sullivan. And before we got down to business, we were able to peek into the nobility of being a senator as he returned to his office for this meeting after meeting with the King of Jordan. Now there's Dan the diplomat, and then there's Dan the bush dog. Now, I know that there are some folks, Val, I see you know exactly what I'm talking about. Christina, I see you. You know what I'm talking about. It's the dog that spends time outside all winter in Arctic conditions, where for food, every couple days, you might toss him a caribou hindquarter to gnaw on. And like that bush dog, once Dan Sullivan sinks his teeth into an issue, he will gnaw on it until the job is done. Whether it's national energy policy, saving our seas, or choose respect, Dan's resolve and determination are unmatched. And he can get scrappy, too. During my time at the Department of the Interior, he took to social media to defend me when his esteemed colleague from New York made some personal attacks. And while we have Dan the diplomat, the bush dog, the scrappy senator, here's a window into Dan the husband and father. Married to Julie for over 30 years, he actually softens a bit when he talks about her. Accomplished in her own right, Julie adds a polished touch to his approach. There is without a doubt so much love between them. And together, they have raised 3 amazing, talented, smart, beautiful, and independent daughters, all of whom have challenged them, as daughters should. Throughout the years, I've learned that the tough persona of a Marine is no challenge for Megan, Isabella, and Laurel. They made boot camp look like a play date as they discovered their own life's paths. So did you know that Barbie Nutcracker is his favorite Christmas movie? Raising 3 girls, Dan became a fan of the Barbie franchise. Barbie Nutcracker, Barbie Mermaidia, Barbie Rapunzel. He is the penultimate #girl dad. So when I reached out to the girls, they recalled tender moments that were far away from the public eye. A dad that was deployed for over a year and a half, often with little communication with the family, who fought his way back to be with his family on Christmas in Alaska, then boarded a flight the next day for redeployment to serve our country. The girls loved it when Dan would cameo in their Golden View video production projects. They shared that he took his role seriously as a method actor and worked hard to get into character. And they waxed on about how they loved this time with him because he was hilarious and it made for great memories. Behind every man, every great man, is a great woman. In Dan's case, there are 4 who love and honor him deeply. An impactful leader has many facets. In Dan's case, those sides range from diplomat to bush dog, to scrappy and relentless senator, to devoted husband, and #girl dad. So regardless of the lens within which you see Senator Sullivan, the Hickel Award for Public Policy is one well-deserved. Congratulations, Senator Sullivan.
Wow, boy, thank you. What a great evening. I am just so honored and humbled to be here tonight. I want to begin by thanking Commonwealth North for this award. I truly don't feel worthy of it when you look at all the great leaders in our state who have achieved it. Wally Hickel, Ted Stevens, Don Young, Lisa Murkowski, Frank Murkowski, Willie Hensley, Jim Jansen, Admiral Barrett, Jake Adams, Oliver Levitt, so many of our great state leaders, but I'm humbled by it. These are builders. These are great builders of our state, and I truly don't believe I belong in that category, but I'm very honored to receive this from Commonwealth North. Governor Walker, congratulations to you and Donna and your beautiful family. I do believe Craig and you did sue me at one point, but I'm not holding any grudges on that one. And I did enjoy our Arctic Man visit. That was great, pretty rowdy, but I did not go skiing like you did, so that was very courageous of you. I'm also really glad that you took that salmon back from Sally Jewell. That was really, I would have taken, well, I won't even go there. But I did appreciate working with you, Governor, during your 4 years, and I appreciated you and Donna coming to that DC event that we all had. Many people here were there. It was very special to me and Julie, and thank you. We enjoyed going to the inauguration of yours in Juneau as well. So congratulations again. How about a round of applause for the governor? There's many people I want to thank. I want to begin by Juanetta, Commonwealth North. This is just a great event. What you do and your continued focus on public policy and effective solutions is so great, so needed. I have so many friends and colleagues here. I want to thank a lot of my team is here. My Chief of Staff, Larry Burton, Adam Tromley, my State Director, Amanda Coyne, Ben Diedrich. They all do a great job for me. So I want to thank my team as the governor thanked his team. A lot of them are here. I was, again, very, very honored to have a few words from Senator Murkowski for both of us. You know, we're an effective team, kind of a 1-2 punch in DC. Good cop, bad cop. You can probably guess who the good cop is and the bad cop. But I think we've continued that long tradition in DC. And you look at the Hickel Award winners, it's so many from the delegation where we're kind of small but mighty. And I think we take a lot of pride on that. John Katchen, boy, John, thank you for those very kind words. We got a lot of great lawyers in this room right now. I think John Katchen is probably, my view, the best lawyer in Alaska. The amicus briefs he's written for our congressional delegation to the United States Supreme Court, other Supreme Court cases that he's done, just a brilliant guy, a brilliant lawyer, has been by my side in many jobs. And I'll tell you the ultimate recognition where people know what a sharp guy he is. You know, when I was working for Governor Parnell as his AG, and he wins his reelection, and he comes to see me and said, "Hey, Dan, I'd like you to stay on my cabinet, but I'd like you to move over to be the DNR commissioner." I'm like, "Well, Governor, thank you so much, but I want something that's going to be really important as part of that, you moving from AG to DNR." And I'm like, "Sure, what is that?" And he's like, "You know that special assistant you have as your attorney general right now, John Katchen?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "You got to bring him with you, right?" This is the governor recognizing who the real brains in the office was, and it wasn't me, it was John. So he's done a great job, so I want to thank him. And then Tara, that was such a beautiful introduction, especially about Julie and my girls. And, you know, she's an award winner in terms of the Egan Award here, has done so much at a very young age with ASRC, with AFN co-chair, as I mentioned, the Egan Award, Assistant Secretary of Interior for Indian Affairs, the first Alaska Native woman to, first Alaska Native to ever have that job. That was amazing. And Tara knows the story, but Congressman Young and I went to go meet with President Trump's incoming Secretary of Interior. At the time, it was Ryan Zinke. He had not been confirmed yet. He was still a congressman. So Congressman Young and I had this meeting with Ryan Zinke, pressing on all these Alaska priorities that we wanted from the Secretary of Interior. At the very end of the meeting, I handed Ryan Zinke a resume, very impressive resume, and I give it to him. He was still a congressman. I said, "Congressman, I'd like you to look at this resume." And he said, "Who's this?" I said, it was Tara Sweeney's resume. I said, "This is your next Assistant Secretary of Interior for Indian Affairs." And then Don Young leans over and goes, "Whose resume is that?" I go, "It's Tara Sweeney's." And then Don Young looks at Ryan Zinke and goes, "You're damn right. She's the best we have. She's going to be it." So that was Tara Sweeney. So we love Tara Sweeney. And then last but certainly not least, I want to thank my wonderful, amazing, beautiful, intelligent wife, Julie. Admiral Barrett said it. I married up, you married up, Governor, you married up. I mean, everybody around here. I'm looking around, Meade. As Tara mentioned, in August, Julie and I just celebrated our 30th wedding anniversary. Yeah, it's hard to believe. I think it went really fast. I'm not so sure. Julie thought it went really fast. But 30 years ago, we got married at St. Matthew's Church on the Chena River in Fairbanks. Marine Corps almost didn't let me go get married, but that's a whole nother story I won't bore you with. And look, Tara mentioned it, but this great Alaskan woman is the love of my life. I've been so blessed, so lucky to be married to her. I've learned so much from the wisdom and grace and kindness of my wife on so many issues, Alaska Native issues, cultural issues, respect for our elders, understanding and appreciating beauty, a great mom. So I want to thank my wife, Julie, one more time. She's amazing, really amazing. So I want to talk a little bit about Wally Hickel. Many of you knew Governor Hickel much better than me, but he had imagination. Luckily for us, he had a restless spirit, and he came from nothing, 37 cents in his pocket when he got up here, and he had that rare combination of a big dreamer with the vision, but also a doer and a builder. And you don't have that combination much. So many of you know the concrete things that Governor Hickel accomplished for our state and for our country, but I think what's harder to capture was what he did for the spirit of our state in helping us all, even today, to set our sights higher when it comes to Alaska on so many issues and so many examples of this during his lifetime. One of the ones I love that just was so kind of poignant, saying, "Hey, I'm going to build the Captain Cook after the earthquakes," and just saying that I'm going to take that investment. And just one clear manifestation of his big visions and goals for our state. He also epitomized that timeless element of the American dream, which I think is still so alive, probably more alive in Alaska than any other state in the country. And that is, it didn't matter where you came from or what your background was. If you worked hard and do the job well, you can succeed. And if you don't, well, at least you learn lessons. So Meade mentioned one episode that I'm going to recall. Many years ago, Julie and I, pretty young married couple, little babies, with a growing family, and I had been working in the Bush administration for President Bush. And we had come back to Alaska after a trip that I had had with the president. We actually went right up to fish camp on the Yukon River to be with Bud and Mary Jane Fate, Julie's wonderful parents. And in retrospect, with my mother and father-in-law, I was probably talking a little too much about my job, patting myself on the back. I was talking kind of like the governor tonight, how I'd just ridden on Air Force One with the president. And those of you know my late father-in-law, Bud Fate, I can tell you very quickly he was just not impressed. We were up on the Yukon, and as a matter of fact, I'll never forget this. I told him a story. "Hey, Bud, I was just out with the president, I was on Air Force One." And he's like, "Great, Dan, that's really great. Now, here's a shovel. He said, remember that outhouse that I had you dig last summer? And I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, you screwed it up. You need to go back and fix that outhouse. So these are the joys of fish camp on the Yukon River, going from Air Force One to shoveling shit on the Yukon in a couple of days. But I also, but there's an important lesson here. Bud Fate, in a very Hickel-like way, was talking to his young son-in-law, essentially saying what I've said about Governor Hickel. I don't care where you come from, you got to do the job right, and you got to get the job done well, and you got to do it well. And I think that was a lesson with the pure Alaskan spirit, and it's a lesson with the Wally Hickel spirit. So what are we doing? What are we doing in D.C. right now to try to get the job done in that spirit? Pretty much what all the other recipients of the Walter J. Hickel Award have done in their careers, if you look at it. We're fighting with the feds. I love the story of Governor Hickel facing D.C. standing up. We're fighting with the feds right now to get access to our lands and develop our resources, something Governor Hickel knew a lot about. We're working to make sure our salmon runs are healthy, particularly on the Yukon and Kuskokwim, something that Julie inspired me to do with legislation that passed of mine last year. We're getting infrastructure to our villages and building out broadband and creating opportunities so the young Alaskans don't leave our state. We do have challenges. I don't want to go into the entire list, but we continue to focus on those. John Katchen mentioned our continued challenges on sexual assault and domestic violence. We have addiction challenges, especially with fentanyl right now. We have a federal government that hasn't been friendly to us, 67 executive orders and executive actions singularly targeting Alaska right now, something that would be driving Wally Hickel crazy as it does me. And we have energy challenges, especially here in South Central. Some are saying that we're going to have to import natural gas from countries like Canada, Mexico. I think Wally Hickel would be rolling over in his grave at that prospect. We have many in the room here, Governor Walker, Mead, so many others who are very focused at their core that our Alaska energy issues should and have to be addressed and solved with Alaska energy. That's critical. So I just returned from my 4th trip to Japan and Korea. I know the governor did a lot of those. Meade's done a lot of those. 4th trip in the last 2 years, working on our energy issues. I still think, given all the work that so many have done over the decades, we still have an opportunity to make Wally Hickel's dream and so many other people's dream here of a gas line for us. We still have an opportunity to make that happen, and with so many people in the room, I am committed more than ever to work with you to make that happen. And finally, we are very focused on the critically important role Alaska can and must play for America during these dangerous times. We are in a new era of authoritarian aggression. If you look around the world, you see it. The dictators in Russia, in China, in Iran, in North Korea are all working together. They're all building up their military. We had a very busy summer here in Alaska with joint Russian and Chinese strategic bomber task force, naval task force. Alaska is literally on the front lines of this new era of authoritarian aggression. Wally Hickel had so many wise and funny things to say. There was even a whole book written about so much of his wisdom. But this is one of my favorite quotes from Governor Hickel. Quote, our opportunity in Alaska, unlike any other corner of the globe, is for our state to be a leader, not a follower, a pattern for the world at large. And I think these words ring true today more than ever, particularly when it comes to America's national security. Because here is what I believe is a fact, that Alaska has an enormous role to play in ensuring that our nation prevails in this new era of competing against these brutal dictatorships, this new era of dictatorships versus democracies. We have a role to play probably more than any other state in the Union. When you think about what we have to offer our country, an incredible strategic location, a very lethal military, what I like to call the three pillars of America's military might are all here in Alaska. We're the cornerstone of our nation's missile defense. We are the hub of air combat power for the Arctic in the Asia Pacific. We are a strategic platform for expeditionary forces that can go anywhere in the world. So important for our nation's defense. We have a wonderful professional military here that we're building up. We have world-class energy and mineral resources that can supply America and our allies for decades to come. And I think all of you know this, and it does make us unique. We have a commitment to freedom, probably more than any other place in America, where you can literally feel it when you get off the plane and come home, as Julie and I did just a couple days ago. So let me conclude with this. There's no limit to what we can achieve because of so many people in this room. When we nurture and cultivate our big ideas and our frontier spirit that Wally Hickel epitomized, we have to never lose his spirit of optimism and thinking big. Shortly after the Prudhoe Bay lease sale in 1969, when Wally Hickel was our Secretary of Interior, a Washington Post reporter wrote about what Alaska's newfound riches might mean for our future state. So this reporter comes up here, checks on all Alaskans, and writes this big story. He interviewed tough, independent homesteaders, miners, trappers, fishermen, and women, he wrote in his articles, who could, quote, change a flat tire on a 1-ton truck in a blizzard. There was a tremendous excitement in our state, but also anxiety that with our newfound riches, Alaska might end up being like so many other places in the lower 48. Wrung out, dull, overcrowded, polluted. We knew then, like we know today, that our future ideal had to involve more than just having money and riches. It was also the need to have a purpose, a sense of creating a place where both freedom of spirit, adventure, and community were interwoven. What has happened since 1969? Well, I think we've done a pretty darn good job, thanks to so many people in this room, thanks to so many people who Commonwealth North has honored over the decades, of creating a unique place, a very unique place that we love and remains full of opportunity. There are setbacks, of course, but working together, there is no doubt, and I think we all know it, we feel it, that Alaskans have built the best, most unique state in the Union. And yes, we still have homesteaders and miners and trappers. We still have women who can change a flat tire on a one-ton truck in a blizzard. There might even be a few here in this room tonight. And I know that we still have serious challenges, but you certainly have my commitment and the delegation's commitment to work through those challenges together with all of you, and at the same time, keep the Wally Hickel spirit of excitement, opportunity, and creation and dreaming big alive. So thank you again. This is a tremendous honor for me tonight. It's great to be here with so many great Alaskans. Thank you very much.
It's a beautiful day. Sky falls, you feel like it's a beautiful day.
Tonight we have expanded the roster of Alaska leaders recognized in memory of two of our earliest state leaders and Commonwealth North co-founders, William A. Egan and Walter J. Hickel. I think another thing our honorees have in common is they aren't done yet. Like many called to public service, there is no off position of the leadership dial. How fortunate for all of us that Senator Sullivan and Governor Walker continue to have a passion for service to the state of Alaska in their official capacities or in their private capacities. They'll always put Alaska first.
Absolutely, Craig. So as we wrap up this evening, let's again thank our sponsors for making this evening possible.
Yeah, thank you, truly. Without the sponsorship, Commonwealth North couldn't possibly host this event. So it's a wonderful thing that Commonwealth North does, and that sponsorship is absolutely critical to its success. There are actually many organizations and individuals that contributed time and resources to tonight's program. We thank all of you, particularly those that are presented here. And also, I would just like us all to give a round of applause to Annetta in particular, who basically planted the wedding by herself. And thanks also goes to the staff here at the Denina Center, Image Audio Visual, as well as Logistics LLC, Tony, Christy, Corey, Taylor, and Rivers, Michael Dinnan, Photography. Deneen, I knew it. Michael Deneen, Photography. Thanks, Mike. I met you earlier. And then DJ John Fernandez. Thank you all, and thank you all for making all this work.
Great. Thank you again also for coming. Judy Brady, the second executive director of Commonwealth North, is here with us tonight. Was also Commissioner of Natural Resources with Governor Cooper. And Judy, thanks also for joining us. And last but not least, we talked about men to match our mountains, women to match our mountains. The drinks glass that you have has our mountain in it, Denali. Dan, I think you may have told the story of how in the first meeting the Alaska delegation had with Donald Trump, he said, "I'm going to rename it Mount McKinley." And you all said, no, don't do that. That was the one decision by President Obama we liked. And there you go. So take that mountain home with you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
My hand, oh, me say oh, me tell you to run. And nobody say, nobody on. Well, pick me up with golden hand. Oh, me say oh, me tell you to run. And nobody say, nobody on. Well, I would like to hold my little hand. I will run, I will cry.